All right, well, as we heard earlier today, schoolies travelling to Bali and Thailand have been warned that they risk attacks from jihadists threatening revenge on the West.
So these new terror warnings released by DFAT urge Australians to be vigilant overseas, whether they're in bars, hostels, clubs, restaurants, cinemas, sporting events. Back with us to discuss is Deputy Editor of the Sunday Herald Sun, Matt Cunningham in Melbourne, and the Australian Women's Weekly, Caroline Overington here. Matt, to you first. Look, that list then, cinemas, bars, hotels, nowhere's really safe. Are these warnings overly cautious, though?
Well, I'm not sure whether they're overly cautious. I will say one thing, though. I think you're probably safer in Bali than you would be on the Gold Coast. I spent a Schoolies there about 10 years ago. It's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, what goes on there on the Gold Coast at Schoolies Week. So, I tell you what, if I had a teenage kid, I'd be offering them a trip to New York or Venice or Paris on me rather than let them go to the Gold Coast or to Bali. But I think that the terror threat, it's definitely real. There was a very interesting program on Four Corners last night, looking at Khaled Sharoof, and the mentality of these people is quite scary. Really, they're people that have been brainwashed and they're willing to do just about anything to wreak that terror. So I think it's definitely important that people are cautious, and I think to put the warning out there telling people to be cautious is probably pretty vigilant from the government. But yeah, I wouldn't want my kids to go to schoolies, in Bali or on the Gold Coast.
Caroline, there's also been a cautionary warning put out about the centenary commemorations at Gallipoli for Anzac Day next year.
Right. If I had a ticket to that event in Gallipoli in April, the 100-year celebration, nothing would keep me away. Nothing would keep me away. I think it'll be one of the most sacred and special and extraordinary events in Australian history to mark that moment, and we should not allow anyone to terrify us away. If you've got a ticket, go. And the other thing I would say is the bigger problem with schoolies seems to be this idea that, yes, there may be a terrorist attack, but it's probably unlikely. What's more likely is abuse of alcohol and the stupidity that comes with that. And so we have seen situations where people have leapt off balconies, or in Bali they ride motorbikes drunk without their shoes on and tear their feet off. They don't wear helmets. You could have something slipped into your drink. As a young woman, that's probably a dangerous situation to place yourself in. That, I think, is a much bigger and real risk for Australian parents as they worry about their children who have just turned 18 in many cases, having their first taste of freedom in a place like Bali.
It's a bit of perspective then.
Right.
Yeah, right. It just adds another level of fear to the whole top of it, doesn't it?